Well, thank you very much. I'm very delighted that you took advantage of the warmer weather to come out tonight. I know for a fact that there is not a person around, probably east of the Mississippi, who is not really ready for spring. And how about those folks in Boston? How stuck on ready for spring do you think they are? A special thanks tonight to our hosts, the Masonic Lodge. The beautiful and historic Masonic Lodge in which we sit tonight began its life just about 100 years ago, really in April. Ground was actually broken in April of 1915, and the cornerstone was laid in June of 1915. The Lakewood Masonic family of organizations invites the community to be present on Saturday morning, May 30th, for the laying of a centennial cornerstone by the Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of the Free and Accepted Masons of Ohio. And they will be assisted by the Grand Lodge officers and local Freemasons. So watch for more information, but this is another benchmark of the 2nd century of Lakewood, one that has served in many capacities. In fact, I remember being in this room when my high school graduation after prom party occurred here. It was a little different context then. We also have a great number of my partners in government, both local here in Lakewood and extended in the county, that are with us. And it's always appropriate to acknowledge the hard work and service that they provide. I'd like to start with the school board. Linda Beebe is here, and Emma Petrie Barcelona, the new president this year. Betsy Shaughnessy is here. And I know Tom Winehouse was perhaps expected. Maybe he'll show later. We're grateful, and we'll certainly going to be a featured part of the landscape of Lakewood in the next 2 years. I'm grateful to acknowledge the presence of Ed Kraus on behalf of Armand Gudish, our county executive, and also his associate, Carlton Laster. Carlton is with us. Ed's responsibilities are to help in every way possible, which is no small task, to foster a better collaboration among the municipalities, all 59 of them here in Cuyahoga County. And if there's ever a context of herding cats, I'm sure that's probably the best analogy Ed can give. But he comes from a background in city council in Solon, so we're grateful that he's with us tonight. Nick Turner, I know, is here. Nick, where are you? Nick Turner is representing Congresswoman Capter this evening, and of course she has an office here in Lakewood, and she has probably one of the longest, thinnest districts in the United States. It's not very wide, but it sure stretches from actually downtown Cleveland all the way to the west side of Toledo. It's a very challenging but very diverse district, and we're grateful that her seniority, she's the longest serving woman in the U.S. Congress. Longest serving, she's she's been there 33 years, is that correct, Nick? 17th term. And I will tell you, I had a chance to spend some time with her in Washington, and she is revered with great respect by all. She has an enormous amount of experience and wisdom, and her associates know that. Judge Carroll is here. Judge Carroll, thank you for being with us. One of the longest-serving municipal judges in Ohio, and we're grateful that his experience is brought to bear on meting out justice right here in Lakewood. We have city council members, of course, here. We have council president Mary Louise Madigan is with us from Ward 4, Sam O'Leary from Ward 2, Sean Juris, Ward 3. We have Cindy Marks at large, Congresswoman, and Ryan Nowlin, also at large, Congresswoman. Councilman Bullock has child care duties. He has a brand new son, and he gives his regrets tonight. Did I miss anybody? Dale Miller. Did I introduce Dale? Dale is our county council representative, so we're grateful that Dale represents the interests of Lakewood in that increasingly important and complex world of county government. I'd like to also thank Lakewood New Life Church, Ryan Lopez. I know, Ryan, where are you? Somewhere in the back. And Ryan is Associate Director of Lakewood New Life Church. And it's actually their sound system, high-tech sound system, by the way. Getting a little used to this year. And Rod Key is actually managing the soundboard. So we're grateful for their hospitality as well. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at the world in front of us. Actually, the subjects I want to touch upon this morning is really, or this evening, are about sort of the broad context of some very exciting and challenging forces that are at play in Lakewood. We're going to spend a few moments to talk about sound governance. That's always appropriate in a world like this. We're going to acknowledge some of the external challenges that are pressing us, most of which we've met head on, some of which at play today. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the transformative investments that we have a unique opportunity to make here in Lakewood that will serve us well both now and long into the future. And then we're going to talk about some issues that are on our plate that we're going to be dealing with in a very compelling way also in the near term and long term. So let's talk about sound governance. What we mean by that here in Lakewood is literally living within our means. We mean by living within the means of our citizens as well. And there's a whole wide range of citizen issues, households and incomes, aspirations and challenges, and we have to respect each and every one of them. We also have to be very effective investors of the hard-earned tax dollars that our hardworking citizens give to our government. In fact, Lakewood is probably one of the largest working cities in the state. We're actually the 14th largest in the state by population, but we're the 10th largest in terms of folks who get up in the morning and go to work. So this is a hardworking town, has always been a hardworking town. And we have an enormous amount of respect for that here, and therefore our stewardship of their precious resources and tax dollars are very, very important to us. We've targeted over 30 processes that we've worked on to improve our governance, lower our costs, gain speed, and improve service. And we have many, many more opportunities ahead of us. We find ourselves in, I'm very pleased to say, probably the strongest financial position in our government in probably 2 decades. 2 decades. And that comes from a variety of areas. On your seat, actually, is a graph on the back. And you can study this later, but I'm going to tell you what that shows. In that upwardly sweeping line is really the strategic reserves of the city government of Lakewood. One of our key benchmark goals is 60 days of general expenditures. 60 days on average would be a minimum of a good relationship for a city like Lakewood, and across the nation, by the way. Today, you'll see in that graph, we're double that. And we got some help from a large estate, no question, but we've packed it away, we're guarding it, and it creates an enormous amount of potential for us. It helps us in so many ways to weather headwinds and take advantage of opportunities. So one of the things that we can acknowledge this in 2015 is that this is the first time really we're on offense. Really dating back to the beginning of the Great Recession in 2008, we've been playing defense. We've been right-sizing our government. We've been struggling to meet challenges that have been thrust upon us. But today, and I'm going to touch on a few of those challenges, those are behind us. And so we can look with more confidence than we have in quite some time about being a player and a contributor to our own destiny. And that's really the theme that I should have acknowledged early on, is that we are really a city by design today. We have a chance to influence in ways that make sense for us what Lakewood needs to look like in the near term. And that's a very exciting position. And I will say there are not that many cities in the state of Ohio, perhaps in the nation, that can look with confidence as we can in 2015. Now, we did meet challenges head-on over the last 4 years. And by the way, this is my 5th State of the City address. And I would say experience counts. I'm much clearer today on the responsibilities of being mayor of a town like this and understanding how to identify some of the challenges and opportunities. We clearly faced financial challenges. We had some legal challenges. Our longest-running lawsuit has been settled and put behind us. It was a threat to us. We faced significant regulatory challenges from both the state and federal environmental protection agencies. And of course, the healthcare market is shifting radically as we speak today. We're going to talk a little bit about that a couple of points throughout the evening. But in almost every case, we've acknowledged these. We put them right in front of us. We've wrestled them to the ground. And most of them we've been able to put behind, but nevertheless, we put them in front of us. And that's right where they should be. Because that gives us the strength and the confidence to know that we can handle both what we don't know is coming, but also what is coming. So one of the key elements that we did achieve in August of last year was we struck an agreement with the State of Ohio Environmental Protection Agency that concluded over 3 years of significant negotiations on a new wastewater treatment permit. That permit may not sound like much, but it is the regulatory authority by which local governments like ours are held accountable to our obligations to the Clean Water Act. And so that permit is not given easily or casually. That permit demands an enormous amount of accountability to cities like Lakewood. Many of our partners in this region as partnership cities are under the guise of a federal lawsuit in law decrees. We are not. We have successfully negotiated through administrative orders a permit that we believe is appropriate, it's affordable, and it makes sense for Lakewood. And that's important because Lakewood has a very unique old sewer system designed in a different time and place. And so we recognize, at least internally, that while sewer systems are not the most popular cocktail party conversation, I will tell you in the mayor's office they are among the most important, and we're very pleased to be able to put that issue behind us. But it does require us to make a lot of investments, which we agreed to. We've recovered from the $3 million of lost revenue that the state of Ohio imposed on us in 2011. It was hard work working with council on budget issues and strategies to right-size our government. In 2013, we were looking at 2002 budget levels. 2002. We rolled back 10 years of government growth, and of course we had to, and we were able to do it without sacrificing service. It remains a challenge. We're on a very thin envelope, but nevertheless, we've been able to meet the needs of our citizens and be stewards of our financial obligations. Now, our healthcare model is under a lot of pressure, and we're not unique there. Tom Zenti, the CEO of University Hospitals, had a recent panel discussion in Cleveland State about 3 weeks ago, said that 25% of the nation's community hospitals will not survive. 25%. And he said that communities that fail to address these challenges will be in for a great shock. Now, however you may feel about this subject, and there's a lot to know and a lot to think about, and we're determined here at all levels to communicate and understand and converse about it, but it's important that we meet it head on. It would be a serious mistake to acknowledge that doing nothing is the best option for us and hope that things change, because the forces in healthcare are so compelling and complex that we need to put them right in front of us and do the best we can to make the best decisions to do two things: make sure the health needs of our citizens are being addressed, and make sure that we have an affordable and sustainable and financially viable healthcare system. Those are no small challenges in 2015 in Lakewood and virtually any community here in the nation. I'm going to circle back to this subject a little later in this conversation. Now let's talk a little bit about some of the opportunities we have. Because we've met some of our challenges head on, because we've been good stewards of our money and we've built financial strength, we have the opportunity to create some unparalleled vibrancy. And let's take a quick look at those. Well, I want to compliment our school board members. They have worked hard, really dating back to 2000, to craft a school replacement strategy, and the last big piece is in front of us. This is a huge, huge undertaking. They've worked valiantly to work through all the issues of design and finance and regulatory compliance. It's an enormous task, but we have just begun the process of those school reconstruction sites. It will complete a redo of all of our educational platforms. And it's important for us to know that we are all partners there. We're helping finance this as citizens, but we also are going to have to deal with some of the disruption that's upon us. It's going to be an active place over the next 2 years, and some of the neighborhoods are going to be affected by it more than others. It will be an inconvenience, no doubt, but clearly it'll be worth it in the end. Well, I'm very pleased to tell you, in about a month's time, we're going to begin construction of this great project we introduced last year. The job's been bid. We've worked through some significant environmental considerations, given that Lakewood Park is on the front end is all landfill. And the Environmental Protection Agency, again, rightly so, understands that when you start tampering with an old landfill, generally about 3 things happen, and 2 of them are really bad. So they made sure that we stayed away from those 2 things, and we had to do some redesign issues. But and the cost grew, but we're determined to place a spectacular project on the 3,000 feet of our almost 3 miles of coastline. But 3,000 feet of it's public, and it's going to be the best public 3,000 feet in the region. And that's going to begin next month. It's going to be about a 6-month job. We're not going to be able to complete it by this June 21st, our original goal. Maybe we'll get there by the autumnal solstice, but certainly next year we can look forward to celebrating the longest day of the year and one of the greatest spots on the North Coast. So stand by. A little disruption again at Lakewood Park, but it will be worth it. And again, the entire lake for 3,000 feet will be improved with a promenade, seats, and new fence line, and culminating again with this view that we'll see looking to the north and to the west, one of the greatest spots in the region to watch a sunset. And do you think we're going to pitch that to Republicans when they come to town next year? You bet. Now, we also have $400,000 dedicated to a redesign of Kids Cove. This is an update of our biggest playground. Times have changed, playground preferences have changed, security concerns have changed, and it's time to invest. We look forward to continuing on the design phase and hopefully maybe the construction phase after Labor Day this year. We have begun our third year of a 10-year strategy to look at every slab of sidewalk in Lakewood. That's 180 miles of sidewalks. That's basically 18 miles a year for each of the next 10 years. And this includes identifying every trip hazard and figuring the best way to improve it through grinding, replacing the slab, or leveling. All those are options. We're partners with the homeowners. Some of it's on the city, some of it's on the homeowner. But we are very proud of our walkability, but we have to make sure it's a safe walkability. And we keep chipping away at this. We'll get through all 180 miles, and we will be not only the most walkable, we'll be the safest walkable, and that's important. Well, soon, this summer, also, you'll see groundbreaking on the McKinley School site. Again, working collaboratively with our partners in the Board of Education who own McKinley School. By the way, who here went to McKinley School? Just you and me, all right? Never would I have envisioned living in McKinley School at that point. But this is an exciting project, $12 million residential development. It took a lot of work to legally position this land appropriately, and the job has been bid, or has been let. The developer has been chosen, Liberty Development, and that development will look like this. And there will be 40 new households in Lakewood. It's a combination of some single-floor living and some not single-floor living. But it brings a very exciting design to a very attractive part of Lakewood that will allow us to, no doubt, sell these. By the way, Clifton Point, we talked about that in past years, has been completely sold. That was a project that also reflected a lot of folks moving in from outside of Lakewood. Well, one thing I wanted to make sure that you understand from our time together tonight is that this is going to be a very busy place in Lakewood this year. On this map, you'll see 14 different project sites, 14, that will be going on simultaneously, a combination of repaving, new water mains, resurfacing, new sewer, combined sewer separations. We've got a 100-house neighborhood just to the south of Harding that will be our test for one of the key questions of whether or not the best way to accommodate the Clean Water Act is to source control of stormwater moving off the site of a house. Our roofs are our biggest collector of water here in the region, and we're going to prove or disprove. It's part of our permit obligations whether source control is the most effective way for us to address basically our untreated stormwater moving into Lake Erie. And we'll know really in about a year and a half whether or not that's a good strategy. If not, we'll have other strategies. But it's important for us to explore that one. Actually, next week at this time, or next Tuesday, we'll be talking to the residents of those 100 houses. It's a series of streets directly south of Harding, and we're going to be working hard to correct how water moves from their house and then evaluating it. Big project, important project, that's going to be underway as well. Well, I think you know how important trees are to Lakewood. The fact is they do so many things for our environment. They keep us cooler, they absorb carbon dioxide, they actually make us psychologically feel calmer, and they absorb an enormous amount of stormwater. All those are important elements of our strategy. Last year we planted 300 trees on public land. This year we're going to plant another 300 trees on public land. We probably have another 600 that we need to get planted. And it isn't so much just planting a tree, it's about nurturing and growing that tree. And I would say that each of us may have an opportunity to help a new tree that might be in our neighborhood, on our tree lawn, and helping make sure it gets water. New trees need a lot of water. And I think each of us need to take a part in helping trees. And if you have an opportunity to plant a tree on your property, and it makes sense for you, I sure would like to encourage you to do so. Because our urban forestry today is about 28% of our land mass, our canopy. We think it really ought to be closer to 40%. We've got a long way to go. And I'm very fond of the axiom that the second best time to plant the tree is today. The best time was 20 years ago. So we're behind the curve, and we need to get moving. So urban forestry is a key element of our strategies here as well. Now this is an anaerobic digester. It's down in our wastewater treatment facility. I know this is probably a very exciting presentation to you, but really what this is energy. In the process of treating our waste, we create methane. And for really pretty close to 80 or 100 years, we have not been able to capture that methane. But there's technology that is readily available today that we're exploring as we speak that would allow us to convert this methane into electricity. And there's enough electricity potential to power the entire wastewater treatment facility and maybe more. And we need to capture that as stewards of our environment and as good stewards of our dollar. And that project is really beginning in its infancy. Well, we appreciate our streetlights. They provide safety to us, but they also cost us a lot of energy and a lot of money. I think you know the future of lighting is probably LEDs, and we have an opportunity to embrace LEDs in these streetlights. They will do several things. They will provide probably a better light, probably a more directed light. They will cut our costs in half, and they will cut our energy consumption by more than half. So why shouldn't we do that? So that's a project that we're gearing up for. It makes sense. The good news is we can do it by increments. We can roll it out across the city as we can afford to. And by the way, there's a whole lot less maintenance on an LED. So we have that project in front of us as well. This is a picture of Madison Avenue, Madison Park last year, Chamber of Commerce, Taste of Lakewood. It was a beautiful June day. Over 10,000 people showed up. But it's also a harbinger of the revitalization of Madison Avenue. That job has been bid, the resurfacing of Madison Avenue and the traffic lights. Actually, we explored starting that job last fall, but we worried about the weather. Turns out we had very good reason to worry about the weather. And we postponed its start until March. So very soon, really in the next week or two, you'll begin to see heavy equipment show up on Madison. I think you would all readily agree it needs to be done. And this $2.4 or $2.8 million resurfacing of Madison plus the signalization is paid for by federal, state, and county money. We actually only have about $60,000 of Lakewood taxpayer money in this big project. And at the end of the day, we'll have a terrific surface. We will be implementing a bike capacity on to Madison Avenue. We're thinking it should be bike lanes, east and west. And we have designs that are going to recognize that. This investment recognizes other investments we made last year in Birdtown in terms of housing projects, the improvement in Madison Park last year, and we're also dedicating close to $250,000 in storefront renovations. And we've had a very significant amount of success attracting new investment at the private side as well. I think we know that here in Detroit, we were able to leverage about a $12 million public investment into close to an $80 million private investment. I think that same relationship will hold true in Madison. It's a little different feel up there, but we have an enormous potential, and we're starting. Now, Chris Betta and Katie Romick are here. Raise your hands. New residents, well, really not so new. How many years? Couple years? 4 years. Moved here from Austin, Texas. And they brought a whole new way of thinking about how a house could behave. You'll see in this picture 30 solar panels, or at least what are 30 solar panels on their house in the garage. This is on Virginia. And they have understood that despite our overcast weather, we had the potential to create energy from solar power. And they're proving that right here. And as a consequence, their energy bill is about $6 a month, right?
Yeah, very low.
Yeah, very low. So I think we are in the position to explore how every house in Lakewood, every 100-year-old house, can be a microgrid. That we can produce in some form or another energy that we consume. Whether it's completely sustainable, where we produce as much as we do consume, or some portion, it doesn't matter. It does several things. It gives us certainly a financial advantage. It takes a load off the power grid. It creates a sense of independence. Oops, what are you doing here? Just lost my slides. Here we go. And we're very grateful for the leadership that Chris and Katie have shown. And I've asked them to make themselves available for any of you who might want to explore a little bit more how it's done. I encourage you to go down Virginia, see if you can spot these, because one of the concerns is how does it affect the appearance, and it does in some way, but probably not as much. But we appreciate the pioneering spirit that you've shown, and we have a lot to learn. And that's important to the resiliency of the housing for our second century. One of the major challenges we have and goals is to remain one of the safest cities in the region. No small challenge in a town like ours, but it's very important. The new police cars we're buying today have 5 cameras on them, 5. They have one facing front, we have 2 creating a 180-degree parameter on the front, and 2 in the back creating a perimeter as well. We, with the work of City Council, have budgeted over $120,000 to add a 6th camera to that car in the form of body cameras. You've read about that. We know Cleveland's exploring that. We think that's great they're doing that. But I will tell you, having the camera is one thing. Capturing and managing the data is altogether another element of the challenge. We do this today with our dash cams in our cars, and we're pretty confident we can do it well with our body cameras, especially if they sync up together, which we expect them to do. But it will do several things for us. It'll provide more eyes to evaluate what's going on. It'll provide more information for investigation, and certainly it provides accountability. And all those are important today. We know that's important. We've gone through a rugged couple years in exploring this relationship between a police department and its community, and we want to make sure that we have the greatest relationship. And part of that is accountability, and this element will be one more tool, just a tool, but an important tool for us to increase our performance on public safety. Now, one exciting investment that we're actually getting close to announcing is our big gig investment. We're looking at about an $800,000 public-private fiber optic network. It will run through the city. It will connect our schools when they're ready. It will connect our library when they're ready, which is probably right now. And it will connect our private schools, and it'll give a commercial connectivity on our business quarters. What this will allow us to do is that the businesses that are here today will be able to purchase economically up to 100 gigs of upload and download speeds. And that's as fast as anything that exists in this region. Excuse me. We think that will provide an incentive for businesses to stay here, because they're not going to find this everywhere, and will certainly provide an incentive for businesses to come here. We think it's an appropriate investment for the public side. The schools look at a world where their bandwidth capacities are probably growing exponentially, and they also have a compelling element of control, of privacy issues that are on their plate. And when they're ready, we want this tool to be available to them. We're working with their folks now, and we're confident that, so confident that the city needs to move this ahead. We've got a great nonprofit partner, One Community, that will allow the various agencies, schools, and otherwise to be able to connect when they're ready. But one element that is important is that as a side result of this is that we will have free Wi-Fi at our parks. So all our parks will be able to have public access to the internet. We think that's an element that's important to a community like ours who need that access, and what better place to do it than in our parks. So that project is really at the beginning of the negotiation phase, and once we make the decision, and Council has worked with us to appropriate that money, it's in our budget, that it's about 120 days to implement it. Sometime in 2015, we're pretty confident that we will be able to boast that we have some of the most robust internet speeds available in the region, and I think that's an important element for our viability. A key element of our communication to our citizens more than ever is using social media. Our website that was built really about 10 years ago reflected sort of the organizational structure as City Hall saw it itself. I think a more effective approach is how you see it. It's your needs for the community, that we reflect how you view the questions. And so we've got a 180-degree flip. Probably by the end of March, this new website will be online. It's under work right now. But it also recognizes other tools that we have that, in fact, include Twitter with over 4,000 followers, double from what it was last year. Facebook, up 700 followers, 5,500, and others like it, other elements of the social media. So we're hard at work there, but much improvements yet to come on the way. Now, we know our housing is very important to us. We began the housing initiative robustly in 2011. We made great strides in our 1 and 2 family. We're about to embark on more serious work on our multi-tenant, the 4 suites and above. Same technology, same approach on that group. But we're really a little overdue in celebrating our century homes. In fact, 50% of our homes will have been built by 1920, and every one of them ought to have a plaque reflecting that. It's about $140, and we got to figure a way to have folks celebrate plaques such as this on their house. This happens to be 1910, which was the age of the house that I grew up in here in Lakewood. But we have much to celebrate, and this is one way we need to do it. But keeping pressure on our houses and their improvements and their compliance is an important element of our strategy. Now let's shift a little bit back to healthcare before we conclude. This is a picture of a mobile stroke facility. In this ambulance is actually a CAT scan. You'll see it in the background there. So if someone actually has a stroke, the technology today allows us to show up at their doorstep and provide immediate service. If you look carefully at this slide, you also see a picture of a doctor. The telemetry of this capability, which exists today in our existing squads, will allow a person who's maybe at great risk of a stroke, will determine what's the nature of the stroke. There's two styles, whether it's a blockage or a bleed. They'll know that while they're en route. They'll be talking to a neurologist en route who will be advising the technicians on proper procedures to employ. And so the idea of waiting till you get to a hospital is increasingly a notion that isn't as appropriate. The idea that healthcare is going to come to you is really the notion of the future of healthcare. And so speed, aggressiveness of response are sort of interesting factors of how we consider what healthcare needs to look like. And it's changing. Technology is a key driver, and clearly cost is a key driver, and the nature of the afflictions that we want to address are key drivers. And they've all changed. All three of those variables are radically shifting as we speak. And designing a healthcare system from scratch today would look very different from the one that was designed in 1907 when Lakewood Hospital was built. So we have an opportunity to work through what makes sense for us, create the financial capacity to address both the clinical issues and the community issues. And that's the subjects that is before our government today. Lastly, we have an opportunity to think about how we can all begin to move and be more active. That's a key element of both our sense of happiness and enjoyment in life, but also our physical health. We have a number of citizens. Jay Fran is one of them, leading a conversation about what elements in our community do we have today that we can leverage, and what elements do we need to bring to our community that make sense. And so it's all part of our second century view. We are burdened by not having a whole lot of open space in this town. So whatever we have to use aggressively and vigorously, 24/7, 365. And there are many ways we can consider doing that more today than ever. We also have some financial capacity that we haven't had in a while to consider what that looks like. It isn't necessarily about building new, it's probably about leveraging what we already have and making sure it's available year-round. And then we've got to encourage folks to go out and use it. And by creating education and conversations that will allow them to lead a happier, healthier, more productive life. And so when we talk about wellness today, clinical service is one of them, lifestyle choices are another. Both are very important. It's a very complex subject, and we look forward to carry that forward. So this is a very great time to be a Lakewoodite. Sure, we have challenges. Every community does. But we are meeting them head on. We have great strengths, and I think you know many of them, and we probably have more than we've had in a while. And we will continue to become a city by design, which will make us a city of choice, which we in many respects are today. So I thank you for listening tonight, and as is our custom, I would be delighted to entertain any questions about the future of Lakewood.
Nearly 80% of teachers assign